Thank you for being here, and thank you to the Historical Society for the invitation to come and have a conversation with a small group. Okay. But thank you for being here, and there are a few unfamiliar faces here, but other than that, I could probably speak about each of you for some reason, because my parents always said to me, life is all about relationships, and that's basically how I'm standing here before you tonight, because everything I've done has been including people and building relationships and connecting people across various lines and boundaries for a general community benefit, whether that was in a professional capacity, in a personal relationship with people, or in my elected life. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here and share some things with you. What Drew is talking about, we mentioned down at the museum. We were talking about some things inside the museum, and one of the things was information on the Rochester Airport. And I said to him, you know, I can't remember the exact year, but it was in the 80s. It was during my tenure as mayor. And I got a call from the 911 center saying, Mayor, yes, we've had a call from the Air Force. Thinking, well, a Russian satellite intercepted an SOS call from the airport in Honeoye Falls. And because our Air Force military satellites were on the other side of the earth at that time and unable to intercept them, Russia checked with U.S. U.S. didn't know it, so Russia asked U.S. to contact the local authorities to further investigate. So long and short of it is a black box in a small airplane housed at the Honeoye Falls now International Airport. Of course, when they're vandalized, they trigger and send a beacon of sound, airwaves. And so there was the international effect. Everett Lewis, who owned that property, was in Florida at the time. But Elmer Schmidt was here. So the next day I went to see Elmer and I said, do you understand what happened across the street? And I told him, and he said, oh, I'm going to have so much fun with this with Everett. And it was in the Rochester papers. I don't remember if it was in the local paper at the time or not. I don't remember, but that was interesting. So Drew was going to tell that story, and then I was going to start a lead off with a few things.
I couldn't tell it the way you just did.
Deb and Tim Smith are here, and I apologize. I wasn't sure what to bring, but I didn't bring the soccer ball with your signature on it or the rest of the team for the year that you won the championship and gave to my dad. So thank you for that. I have it along with another one. So.
My handwriting's gotten a lot better since then.
And you're using more words now. This is last week's paper. This is March 27th. And on the back, it starts the pub crawl series that they're doing in Honeoye Falls. And they start by coming south on 65 into the village. So I have a trivia question for you. This is the door handle off one of those pubs, bars, watering holes. Now, some of you, I know, were in this establishment across time, but I dare say that this predates any of you. It came to me from Harvey Fuller. If any of you know or knew Harvey, he was a collector of many things that were being discarded along the way. And his garage was full of Honeoye Falls treasures, some of which he generously shared with me. This was one of them. Do any of you have any clue what establishment this might have come from?
What's on there?
Oh, it's all embossed. There's nothing that tells anything.
It's not
just,
really
no, it's just
symbolic.
No, there's no symbolism on to indicate.
It's a bar.
It's a bar.
The rat trap. Rat trick.
There you go. And interesting.
Grew up there. With my dad.
You know,
He was done milking cows, we'd go up and grab a beer. He would. I had
Well,
Coke.
that's from the Rat Trap.
Or the walk.
The Walk-In Tavern, excuse me. And on the back, I have a wire because it hangs on my Honeoye Falls wall, which is 20-some feet long
Oh,
and is just like a gallery of things. It has all kinds of things on it, this being one of them. So I asked one of my classmates from high school one day, I said, where was this from? No idea. I said, well, I kind of remember that you had an 18th credential, but you weren't quite 18 at the time. And the beer was, I think, 5 cents draft.
Wow.
And he looked at that and he said, that was the handle to the Rat Trap? That was it. So thank you for your articles, and we go with that. If you are a graduate of Honeoye Falls or Honeoye Falls Lima, or Lima, Central, Lima Union Free District, this was the first yearbook of HFL, and this was our class president's yearbook.
What year
What's
is
the
it?
name on that?
1970.
That was the first.
What's the name?
Wow.
And
Anna Pedisano, Jane's
Aw.
sister.
Aw.
So her husband gave this to me. He thought it might be a good spot to share it around. So this was the first book. This is 1970. We were the first graduating class. The district of Honeoye Falls merged with Lima Union Free School in July of 1969. So we were the first graduating class in June of 70. So brand new yearbook. You know, no more Hornet.
Yeah.
No more Lima.
So it
Indians.
switched to Cougar? Is that the
No,
Cougar?
it's the 1970 for the year of graduation liaison.
Right, but it's got Cougar colors.
Yes, because it was black and gold colors.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, and Emily,
Yeah.
you will appreciate this because your brother Dan
Yeah.
took his warm-up uniform from soccer in 1969. Because of the merger in July, there was no opportunity to get uniforms. We even had to pick colors and a mascot. So the soccer team in the fall of '69 wore the Honeoye Falls orange and black uniforms. And when the season ended, the coach, yes, Chuck Meisenzahl, said if any of the soccer players wanted to take their warm-up uniform, they could do that. So Emily's brother
Oh.
Dan, class of 70,
What do you know?
decided he would take it. And interesting, March Madness,
Yeah.
he wears his orange and black uniforms, and he calls the team that he follows with a group
Michigan
of people.
State. Yeah.
Yeah, but he follows March Madness with
Yeah.
a group of
Oh,
people,
totally. Yeah.
and they call themselves the Hornets.
Oh, gosh. Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, yeah. So there's that.
Too bad Michigan State just lost, so too bad.
Is that the yearbook where the cover has the Honeoye Falls building on one side and the Lima on the other side, and kind of an early version of Photoshop?
Not
Makes
yet.
it
No.
look like one building?
No,
That's the next
no.
one, maybe.
this is all ours, and I know that from the left side.
Okay.
I know what you're talking about. No, this is
Yeah.
just the one building. I did bring some other things. Drew was kind enough several weeks ago to send me a link to check out. I had no idea what it was, but I clicked on it, and all of a sudden I heard my dad's voice, which was like, oh boy, you know, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
So I listened to the whole thing, and it was basically a questionnaire to him about Honeoye Falls, now Mendon Rotary. And one of the things he talked about was the Rotary Car Show, which was here at the International Airport Field, and at the Mendon Fire Hall property. So I was looking through some things after I listened to that, and I found this. What does that say on it?
Rotary Car Show field layout.
Yes. So this is the
Original.
like the spec sheet. My dad was wonderful at laying out athletic fields. So he took on the task of laying out the field for the car show. And I'm sure he had the marker from school, right? Where you go along, yeah. And inside there's a little slip of paper that says roadways 20 feet, main entrance 21 feet, distance between aisles 45 feet. So, yeah, there was that. I just thought I'd bring that because that is on your website, right?
Yes, that's on our YouTube channel, link from our website, yeah. As part of our tape archives that we've been publishing.
And this little section of log, can you see the holes in the top here? Anybody have a guess?
Pencil holder.
Pencil holder. And on the bottom, it says, made by William Mantagna, 1999, locust wood. And Bill made these for the Rotarians. So, I treasure this. Bill was a predecessor, immediate predecessor to me as mayor, and I served on the board as a trustee when Bill was mayor, and I know that he was extremely instrumental in doing things, and that you've named the room where the alumni exhibit is now as the William Mantagna room. So I thought that might be, of interest to you.
The library's on his property.
Yes, a very interesting property, by the way. Okay, so this is this week's back page. Who knows who in the room is here from the photo? Ah, yes.
Who is it, John? Broke it.
Who is it, John? It's John Broomfield, Odie Banser, Rocky Blyer, and TJ, Tom Jameson. So, prompted a story in my mind because my mom and dad were in Florida visiting Ray Milne. Well, Ray was in Florida visiting his brother and then his sister and brother-in-law. And they were out on a beach walk. And they came back to the parking lot, and there was a car parked right next to my mom and dad's navy blue Ford station wagon with an Everett Lewis sticker on the back bump, the back of the car. And this guy was leaning against his car, and so my mom and dad and Ray walked up to the car, and he said to my father, "Do you own this car?" And I think my mother thought, the guy had hit it or something, and he was just, and Dad said, "Yeah, this is our car." He said, "You're from Honeoye Falls?" Because it said Everett Lewis, Honeoye Falls. "Yeah, we're from Honeoye Falls. Any chance you know Otis Banser?" And Dad said, "Yeah, we know Odie, right? Odie Banser." "Well, how do you know Otis Banser?" Dad said, "Well, he played sports. I was a coach and physical education teacher and married to one of our other students, and I know his kids and his whole family." Dad said, "How do you know Odie Banser?" He said, "He was my roommate in college." And they had lost track of each other. So now I get the phone call from the payphone somewhere on the beach. "Can you give me Odie Banser's phone number?" So, yeah, we put them in touch with each other, and they remained in touch for many years. Brings me to school. Pre-HFL.
Tennies.
Falls Dairy, Honeoye Falls, 37 North Main Street. Okay, so if anybody went here to school in the 50s, early 60s, before paper milk cartons came out, these were the school milk bottles from Falls Dairy.
Cute 2 cents.
Yeah. And on the back it says, "I want to go home. Return me." So,
It's like it's ridiculous.
these are Falls Dairy, and my mother always said to me, every party needs party favors, so I have that in my mind here. So if anybody would like, before you go, you are welcome to have a milk cap from Falls Dairy. Because if you had home delivery, these were the caps on the bottles. So I don't know how many are in here, but there certainly are enough for you each to take one if you would like. And, let's see, we'll go from there to here. I know there's Mendon Fire Department represented here tonight. Anybody here member or former member of the Honeoye Falls Fire Department? Well, there's somebody here who works on the Buffalo fire engine. Tom Edwards, thank you very much. That's the antique vehicle that you sometimes see in parades, and Tom keeps that up and running. And if you've been in Honeoye Falls for any length of time where you've come just to come and see the charm and stay for the experience, as it says on the letterhead now, and you've looked up at the top of the village hall, you've seen something like this atop the steeple. This was made by Roy Nichols. Roy worked for the village of Honeoye Falls, and he was always carving or making something. And it's painted on both sides, and it has a hole here and a hole at the top because it hung on some springy material, and there was one on each side of the interior of the cab on the back of the pickup truck that he drove. So when he went around town, he was proudly displaying. So I have many things that he made for the Iron Firemen. This is a cookie cutter, a functional cookie cutter. Jim Lemline made this in his basement tin shop, as he called it. And Wanda made cookies for the Sesquicentennial Committee. And I saved it till it absolutely crumbled. and they had frosted it in the colors appropriate. So these hang on the wall too. There's all kinds of. There's even a Husky farmer's hat nailed onto the wall.
So have you used it to make cookies?
No, I don't roll anything. No, I'm a drop cookie baker. I'll show you something else here from school. I don't know if any of you will appreciate this. It's been painted, but picture it just is a wood block. Okay? This is the root of many other blocks. And they were wooden blocks, and they're from the kindergarten at the North Bloomfield Schoolhouse.
Oh, my gosh.
You went there? Okay. All right. So maybe in kindergarten you played with some of these. If you put 4 of these side by side, that's also a size that I have. If you put 4 in this row and 4 in a row behind it, that's another size of the block. And if you make a block with 2, that's a size I have. And if you do 2 layers of those, so you have 2, 2, 2, and 2, that's another size. There was an auction. The school district held an auction when they sold the property, and nobody wanted these. And I looked at my father and I said, "We're taking those home." And I don't know if we paid $1 for them. I have no idea. But I used them, and I've had them painted like this and in another color. And I use them like on a buffet for different levels of dishes and all kinds. Christmas time, I prop things on them. But I brought the little one because I just wanted you to know about that.
Is there still a North Bloomfield School, or is that still somewhere you can see it?
It's sold to private property, and it's up-down apartment, I think.
Where is it?
Martin Road.
Yeah.
If you come on Bragg Street into
Yeah.
North Bloomfield, you'll see it's a
Yeah.
big brick building.
Oh.
Flagpole's still in front.
Oh, right there near the 4 corners. Okay.
So if you didn't know, I collect everything Honeoye Falls, many things Honeoye Falls. My latest acquisition is courtesy of Hank and his puzzle out of Bleak Bookstore. So thank you for that. But there's all kinds of things between hanging on the walls and propped around. I'll tell you a little story about this milk bottle. What does that say on it?
Meisenzahl. What do you
Meisenzahl
know?
Dairy Farm,
Right,
736 Portland Avenue. This
Oh,
was
in the
my
city.
Grandpa Meisenzahl's dairy
Oh,
in the city of Rochester on Portland Avenue.
cool.
And I wish I had brought some milk to pour in it so that you could read it. But these were his milk bottles. And my mom and dad both went to Cortland, State University College at Cortland, physical education majors. And they met, one going up and one coming down a staircase in the building that was there at the time. And my mother told the story about how she saw my father and she looked and she thought her stomach flipped and she said, "That's the guy I'm going to marry," to herself. So she goes home for Thanksgiving and she's telling her parents about this guy. And so my grandfather says to her, "Well, is it serious?" She said, "Well, I think it could be." Well, he said, "You probably don't even know how to spell his name." And she was rattling it off. And she looked at me and she said, "You know, growing up, that milk bottle was on our table. Of course I knew how to spell it." So there's that. I brought a few other things here, and I'll just say, if any of you have a strong affection for the Honeoye Falls Fire Department, the Ladies Auxiliary published a cookbook a while ago, and I would love for somebody who loves to cook and has an appreciation for the community to take one of these with you. There's some great recipes in there from people who are generational families. So that would be great. And anybody here a member of Post 664? No? Okay. Does anybody know what's downstairs here? Well, there used to be a bar, because when this was just the Post home, the bar and the social activity happened downstairs. And when the town took this as a community center, the Legion Post retained the downstairs area for their Post home and their activities. But when it was a bar, there were chips. So if you were here, and I would suppose that at some time Mr. Templer maybe bought a friend a drink
Usually.
who didn't want the drink but took a chip so he could have it another time.
Oh,
And the chips were in red and blue. And I know where these came from. That's not important. But I have several, and I have some at home, and I thought I would share them with anyone who's a Legionnaire here tonight. So there's a few of these. If any of you would, affiliated with a veteran or you'd like to take one, you're welcome to do that. There's a few of those. Outside here in the cemetery, you'll see the new Veterans Memorial, and I still say it's new because growing up it was the flagpole in the middle. And the town and the village wanted to create a Veterans Memorial, so there were several of us who were on the committee to put that together, and I'm very pleased with how it came out. I think it's a great asset for the community. And I especially love it when the back side of the wall, it has ornamental grasses, but when they're in full growth, it obscures the light on the flags. So it's much easier to see what it is without the grasses on the back. But when the wind is blowing the way it is right now, you can see the names on all the flags. Usually the wind comes the other way and you don't really get to see them, so there's that. But thank you for all that all of you do. And I'm going to pull out a few people here because Mary, the house that you live in on West Main Street, I was a frequent flyer in that house when my girlfriend Kathy Overslaw Morehouse lived there. Went to birthday parties and played back and forth, and it was quite the community gathering. And it was next door to Odie Banser's house.
I love it there.
Yeah, it's a good spot. And Amelia and Brett were in the class of 71, right after. And the senior class of 1970 and then the senior class of 71 were together with the Lima students with the merger. Other than that, there was no room to put everybody together. So for a while there was still, elementary and junior high freshmen and sophomores in their same respective previous situation, their buildings. Kathy and Tom are graduates. Emily's a graduate. And I'm gonna come down here to Claire and John, and anybody, Ginny. Yes, Ginny Moffett and John. Oh, and Jane. Yeah, okay. I'm happy to answer any questions for you if I can.
I have a question just that links onto this. So
Yes.
I'll do it right away. Do you know does anybody, I bet you Diane might, know about Tenny's Dairy? Because, now I'm gonna age myself, but I'm just gonna say, we grew up in Mendon, in the cobblestone there, so, 6 kids in our family, and 3 horses in the backyard that now has all $1 million houses, by the way. But, I used to go around with Mr. I'm not sure if it was Mr. Tenney, but he used to have the milk truck, the little cube van, whatever.
Bill Tenney.
And we would go to everybody's back porch. I went and I did the deliveries for him. I was all of 8 years old with this quite old guy in his van. So I'm just saying that that's how Mendon was. Nobody had any question whatsoever. Never heard any, never even thought of it. We knew him and he needed help. He was a little getting sore, he was getting older. And so I went to everybody's back porch and put it in their little milk tin boxes, which I have too. I save all those things too.
No, Bill went around and opened the back
Bill.
door or wherever the milk
Bill
was supposed to go, and
Yeah.
So you could have been in the middle of
I think it
breakfast.
was in Rochester though, or wasn't it?
No.
'Cause he would,
Right
it was,
here on North Main
oh, it
Street.
was part of this
Yeah.
one, okay.
Across
That's
from
what
the gas station, the mobile
Because it wasn't this
station.
one though.
In the back.
That
Yeah.
one's the,
No, the Meisenzahl bottle was a
no, not
Rochester
Meisenzahl,
dairy.
the other one.
This
the-
one, this is
yeah.
Falls Dairy was
Falls
the Tenney Dairy.
Oh, but it is the same.
Yeah,
That's what you're saying.
that's the name of the dairy.
Okay.
Falls Dairy, E.A. Tenney, that was his
Right.
father started it.
Okay.
So Bill took it.
Yeah, we all did tours when we were kids. Anybody else do the tour of the, kind of stinky, wasn't it? That's what I remember.
Not as bad as pre-delivering the milk. In 1966, the blizzard of 1966, where the village was basically isolated and shut down from everything, our farm on Clover Street, we couldn't get the milk to Grandpa's brother on the West Henrietta Road where the ice cream cones and the dairy store was. So Grandpa wanted to bring the milk here because nobody could get milk into Tenny's on the the regular suppliers. So the plows really weren't going outside the village. It was horrible. So my Uncle John, we had a front end loader on the tractor, and he went before the truck with the milk cans on the back, and eventually they got here to the dairy. So Bill had some milk, but otherwise farmers were dumping the milk because you couldn't go anywhere. So, there were I'm sure you were in the same boat
We
there.
as well.
Blizzards.
We opened the cans to the neighbors, come and take what you want, and we had to dump it
Yeah.
for days.
Yeah, there were a lot of dairy farms here in Mendon at one point. Right? Yes. Okay. Yes. Hi, Eric.
I just want to touch on the Falls Dairy thing. When I met Jenny, started coming to Honeoye Falls, 1 in the morning you needed some milk. They used to have a vending machine in front of
Bill Mantagna's store.
Oh, okay.
Right in front of Bill
That rings
Mantagna's
a bell.
store.
And then there was one at the Falls Dairy on Main Street
Yeah.
there too, but I thought that was,
And there was one in Industry. There
huh?
So
was
modern.
one over at Industry.
Oh,
Now that should be in the museum.
yeah.
Was it a vending machine for milk?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You put your
Quarter.
75 cents in.
I think it was a
Was
quarter.
Bottle or jug or whatever.
Yeah, the paper cart, the quart paper cart. Yeah.
Wasn't that by, in front of Mantagna's?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah. And then-
But the one that we used to go to was to the left of the post office in that
Yeah,
tent.
That's it, that was in front of Mantegna's.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
I have the milk box at my house, at one that's in the wall,
yeah.
the built-in one. It's tin lined, and it still is operable. Of course, we don't have anybody delivering milk, but
It
Well,
keeps things cool.
If one of these shows up in the box, you'll know.
well, I think we nailed it shut, or it's been painted shut.
Yeah. I have a small milk box from Tenny's, and then I have a bigger one from Grandpa's
Oh,
Dairy.
you should have brought those two.
Well, I didn't know
You
where
have
to
too much
stop
to
and
bring.
start.
Too much.
Yeah. Thanks to Hank, I have some things in the house that hang on the wall. One is a hand pointing like this, saying July 4th, Honeoye Falls.
Oh,
A little black and white, and some old carnival posters from way before they were going to be printed by O'Brien Brothers printers in color. You know, they're on very faded paper now, but large black lettering.
where did they do the carnival? At the school?
Well, they did at Harry Allen Park, is
Yeah,
where
yeah.
they did a lot of things, and then down here at Wolfsburgers Park, where the new road is,
Yeah.
and then Monroe Street.
Oh, wow, lots of,
Yeah.
lots of places.
Yeah. So
We didn't have one way back in the day that I remember.
do you know,
No,
Mike,
yes,
when
we did.
you
We had a
started?
parade. Yes, we did.
When the carnival started?
Yeah.
I think we're up to our 50th, roughly.
Okay. So a while.
But there was years we didn't have a carnival too, though.
Right.
So it's not 50 consecutive years. I think we're
Right.
about at our 50th carnival
Well-
in Mendon.
Prior to carnivals here, there were events that were held. And I was telling when I came in earlier, I have a poster. It's almost 4 feet tall, and it's probably about 28, 30 inches wide. And it's O'Brien Brother printers, and it's in color. It's red and blue on like a vanilla paper. And 4th of July, Honeoye Falls, 4:30 a.m. to 9 p.m., a salute of 21 guns at sunrise.
Wow.
Because 1929 was before daylight savings time. So, you know, keep that in mind, 4:30, the sun is up.
Yeah.
And it was to celebrate having the Buffalo fire engine in town. So there was a pumper display. So, and then it talked about other things. There was a street dance, music, all kinds of food and activities, and I'm sure that it was around the vicinity of Harry Allen Park, because the last school graduating class from there was 1928. So this would have been 29 when the new school on East Street was being occupied.
Buffy, I've got a question for you, and I want to also encourage people to just keep asking questions, because we're going to learn a lot. But as you probably know, I'm from out of the area, and there's some things that I think the future generations might want to know about you. What is the story that led you to become mayor? How did you decide to do that?
When I was elected as a trustee, Bill Mantegna was mayor, Carl Arena was the deputy mayor, Bob Palmer, Lee Lake, and Doug Rath had been a trustee in the election for that season of elections. There were 3 of us running for 2 seats. And so Carl and I were successful, and Doug was not. So when I came on the board, Bill Mantegna's daughter was 2 years ahead of me in school. Bill Mantegna's son was 1 or 2 years behind me in school. Bob Palmer's daughter, Barbara, was one of my close friends. Lee Lake's son, Stephen, was in my class. Millie Parmalee was clerk. Wilma Palmer was the deputy clerk. And, you know, I was kind of like an unknown. But prior to that, I'd been on the Recreation Commission. And I went before the village board just at a public hearing about the budget, because there was some extra money coming from the federal government or the state government for for general purposes, general use purposes. And my suggestion was, let's start something with parks. Let's start doing something with parks. And after that, Bob Palmer, when I saw him, he said, you know, you ought to think about running for the board. It never even occurred to me. So they were going on and on with this discussion meetings later, and I sat there and I looked and I thought, you know, they're talking about things like, you know, I feel, I think, and I thought, I could share my opinion. I could do that. And that's how, you know, the seed was planted, and I became interested and ran. And then in the middle of the 4-year term, there was a mayoral election, and Bill was running as an incumbent, very unhappy with me that I would, you know, run against him. And I was saying to him, it's not against, it's running for a position. And, you know, if I'm not successful, I will remain on the board and you'll be the mayor. So that's how that happened. But after serving, you know, for 2 years on the board, it was very interesting to me. I like to learn things. I like to understand things and know how they work. And it just was very intriguing to me. So that's how it all came about. Gary.
Do you have a favorite accomplishment as mayor?
We did an awful lot of things. Very many things. The sidewalks in the downtown area were all redone with community development block grant. We did a lot of work with drainage, continued to replace the sidewalks. There's a story, the funny story in there. But the bridge, you know, the East Street Bridge fell in April 1st, 1982. No, I was elected mayor in 81. And then Glenn Warren called me because he had sewer problems. That was the major thing right after 81. And then in 82.
I did a picture of the bridge after the side fell off. I was up on the fire escape on the thing.
Yeah.
I was doing it for a cover for the
For the school calendar?
For the, it was 1981, 82 was the year.
Yearbook?
It was, I think it was 82. The school year was 81, 82, and the bridge fell April 1st of 82. I'll look it up, Hank, but I'm pretty sure it was. And that was tough. That was a tough night. Yeah, well, everybody thought it was a joke.
I remember early that morning, we'll say around 10 o'clock each, we'll say, a guy came from the shop and said, the bridge fell down. And my father and I go, what? What are you talking about? We know April 1st, it was full. So I went out and I looked at it, went to the show, my God, it did. I mean, the bridge, the side was gone, you know. So
Yeah. It was an earthen-filled concrete arch.
Yeah.
And so the arch was poured, the sides were poured, and then it was backfilled with dirt. There were conduits for drainage, but over a lot of time and rattling, you know, with different things, the drainage pipes moved enough that the water was being absorbed by the dirt. And March 31st was a gorgeous day, and I remember going across the bridge, walking across the bridge, and the kids from school, when school let out, were sitting on top of the concrete wall, one side to the other. Never thought anything about it. That was not an odd thing to happen. And as I got to the Main Street side, I looked down at the sidewalk, and the sidewalk had moved. It had done this. The flag on the ground versus the flag on the bridge had a sidewalk flag piece had moved. I thought, boy, this isn't good. And then, you know, not even 12 hours later, from 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 1 o'clock the next morning, I get a call from Alan Hopkins at the firehouse. He said, Mayor, you better get down here. The bridge fell in. And I said, yeah, you guys have been telling me for days, you know. Wait till you see what we're going to do with you for April 1st. He said, no, it's no joke. Everybody came running out of Willie's. And he said, I called the chief. That was Bill Caves at the time. And he said, he'll be down. But I told him you can't drive across. And the lane closest to the falls, the side virtually dropped off, and, you know, that dirt came down, and there was a gas line that went through the middle. There was a main sewer line that went through the middle. It was scary. It was scary, yeah, it really was. So prior to daylight. I mean, in the course of 4 hours, there were a lot of contacts to make, including the school, because of the bus traffic in the morning. You know, and so many people came off Ontario Street with their blinkers to the left, and you could see their faces. And I went into what was Critics, prior to Critics, and Margot Bouchang, you know, was in there cooking breakfast and da-da. And the people in there, it was so interesting to listen to the conversations. Leave it to the state to start doing something in the middle of the night, because nobody knew really what happened. It was very interesting. We were reduced to three-way stop signs at one point when there was electric work to be done for the traffic light and the posts, you know, the walk, don't walk. They took the traffic signal off, and there was three-way stop sign. We were very fortunate because Hyde Park was the local detour. There were no accidents, but we quickly, county came out and striped it for us so that you had an idea of where you were. There was still a guardrail on the creek side at that time, so that worked out well.
And they had the pedestrian bridge that ran from the parking lot over to Harry L. Park, too,
Yes.
which was kind of...
Right next to Bill Mantagna's building there on East Street. You asked me again, because I thought of a funny story.
What are you most proud of as accomplishing as mayor?
I think the community we were energized. It was fun. It was interesting. And people were very much together with events and I don't know, there was a sense of real community spirit. The sesquicentennial celebration was fabulous.
It was.
We did I think 6 weeks of a concert series in the park, and I remember sitting there with Mrs. Anthony. Does anybody remember Mrs. Anthony from York Street? And I said to her, "This is great. I wish we could keep doing this." Well, you're the mayor. The light bulb. So, but as small kids and, as in school, there was always a Saturday night band concert followed by a movie in the park. Coach made sure of that because it was part of the summer recreation program. So, just interesting things. A lot of fun. I met Ed Koch, New York City mayor. Took him a T-shirt out of Embledge Pharmacy that said London with the tower, Paris with Eiffel Tower, Rome with the Colosseum, and then Honeoye Falls, the Iron Firemen. And I said to him, "This is special. I'm only giving this to you because we share the same birthday, not date, day. As do Jane and I share the same birthday, and Sister Ann was a week older than I am. So, yeah." And Cindy Grote Matthews is the same birthday. Karis Gustin is the same birthday. Frank Sinatra. But I just, and Janine Milne, if any of you knew Janine Milne. Yeah, we had the same birthday too. So, and it was on a Friday night during basketball season. So, Coach had to go to the game. So it's a good thing I was born in the afternoon, I guess. So,
Poor Sally.
yeah. Oh, my mother and dad always loved to meet up with their students, and many of my mom and dad's students would come to the house if they had moved away. When they came to visit, they would come and say hello. And, my mother was always thinking of her students, and it was my girls. And Ellen Weber was one of my mom's girls from St. Agnes. My mom taught for 4 years at St. Agnes in the early 60s.
Where's that?
It was on East River Road. Now it's part of U of R. And I just thought that was a fascinating place because the nuns were majority of the teachers, the instructional staff, and there was a convent behind the school. And I went with my mother one day, and it was pouring rain, and I couldn't understand how they were just dry and so perfect, in their habits. And my mother said, "Oh, because there's a tunnel over to the convent." Okay. Oh, interesting stuff. So,
Yeah, Honeoye Falls was very different from Mendon growing up. I was always very envious of all, seemed like there was a lot always going on. Kids running around at night, and we didn't really have that exactly. We used to have half of the kids of the whole town in our backyard playing ball every day. So, you know, and the big thing was to be able to hit the ball past Father Schnacky's into Anderson's yard. But, you know, it was a real community, and so was Honeoye Falls, but quite different. Even though we're in the town of Mendon, we always thought that was cool that we had the, you know, we were on the top of the deal. But yeah, I was always jealous of, I just always heard of all these stories of girls dating guys and all this stuff, and we just didn't have any of that stuff when I was growing up, really. Yeah, but you were the townies, you know, the townies were quite different from.
To touch base on Monsignor Snappy's,
Yeah.
that my sister and I used to ride our horses down
Yeah.
for 5:30 mass on Saturday, and Monsignor would bless the horses all the time.
I should have seen you there, though, because we had the horses right there, too.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing. We did have a parade in Mendon before 19...
We had the Memorial Day parade.
Yeah, but it wasn't a whole carnival. It was just the parade.
Just the parade, yeah.
Yeah, we always wanted to ride the horses, but my mom was not excited about that. She used to have to drive behind us to go to Pony Club. I know.
Pony Club, definitely.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember talking to you. That's what it was.
No, Pony Club.
It's
And Mendon
interesting.
was big for that. Mendon used to be incredible for
It
that.
was.
We won nationals all over, so
Weston's
we were
Farm.
famous.
Well, we have an
Yeah,
Olympian.
yeah.
We have an equestrian Olympian from Honeoye Falls,
Yeah.
John Williams.
We rode at the DuPont Estate.
Oh, well, I don't even know him. Jackie Kinney, her horse went.
Truly,
I don't, John, who is it?
That was
John
my
Williams?
interpretation
John
from what I've
Williams?
heard.
Yeah.
Williams, I know some Williams
Yeah,
here, but
equestrian,
tree farm.
which tree?
The
the tree farm.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I've gotten a tree there. Oh, that rings a bell. I was talking to him for ages. I'll have to.
And the other
Yeah,
Olympian
that's
was Joan
right.
Smith.
John Smith.
And what was he in? What did he do?
Joan was
Joan
biathlon.
Smith's biathlon.
Biathlon. What do you know?
She lived down Monroe.
Monroe Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, her dad was Proper and Smith veterinarian.
And your dad got everything going for Title IX, which I credit. I ended up doing a ton of sports, but because of Title IX. So we got to be on the guys' ski team, and we were with all the guys in tennis, so we were playing, you know, we had, so I was playing with all the guys, which was very different. I don't recommend it. It's not it's the one thing I don't recommend as far as girls having to compete against anyone who's not fully a girl, that's all. That's one thing that is just, because I found that out after competing with all the guys, you know, and then I was on a co-ed soccer team forever, and I was surprised to get out of there with my life. So, you know, I'll just tell you that truthfully. But your dad really got me going in all that, and I competed for 7 years in the whole thing on that, and still play all the sports. We did them all, and it was, yeah, he just pumped everybody up. He had a nickname for me, the Big M, whatever. He was just, it was just, made all the difference in my life. I think a lot of people commented on your dad. I think it was on Facebook too. He was just amazing. Your whole family is amazing. I go there. I skip doing most of my gardening these days because I go to your farm, your family. Corn. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's your brother.
Oh, yeah. Even
Yeah, everything.
Coffee's
Everything there. Are you kidding? $2 tomatoes. Give me a break. I pay it. I love them. I have to have them every day.
Muffy,
Yes.
what do you want people of the future to remember about the era of Honeoye Falls in which you lived that you think might get forgotten?
Well, you know, the culture changes things as things evolve and change and ebb and flow back and forth. We talk now a lot about walkability, and I was just thinking as we're having conversation, talking about school, if you look in the 1958 yearbook, when you open the front cover, there's a photograph of Peggy Leonard, Steve Lake, and Kathy Overslaw walking down the sidewalk to school. So in 1958, we were in first grade. And they walked from Locust Street. Kathy walked from where Mary lives on, West Main Street. They walked to school.
Yep.
So there's something that's come full circle. People come here now, and one of the big things in the real estate marketing for the village is walkability.
Yeah.
So I've seen things kind of come full circle. I've seen other things that don't necessarily appeal, to me personally, but I think they're good for the community in general. I think, as someone here in the audience expressed to me at one point, the merger of the school district brought many benefits to both school populations. I hope people will be respectful of who came before them. There was a time we were dealing with some major zoning issues here in the village. And I remember some people just being like, and I thought to myself, how do you think this got to be the way this is? You didn't just fall here from the sky. A lot of us share your same sentiment for environmental concerns and good quality housing, and the school district is great, and our business community has a core, and it's a good community, but please don't think you're gonna come here and change the world because you're attracted here for something. Don't, please integrate into the community and share what you bring to the community, because we all bring something. Everybody brings something. There was a time capsule done in the year 2000, and I was asked to submit something, and that was one of the things that I was concerned about was, what's somebody 100 years from now going to want to know about the village, or what will be here then that would even be recognizable? And I know from, my age and growing up here forever, this is my home community, I've seen things change, but the built landscape of the village basically looks the same. Main Street, whether you're looking at an old postcard, no matter what view you're looking at, it's still very recognizable.
Yeah.
And, I'm looking at the back of this. This is the one with the pub crawl. And somebody asked me yesterday, was that a hotel on North Main Street next to where the shoe store was? And I said, I don't know if it was a hotel. I remember Doug Foose had a flower shop on the level, the ground level, and upstairs there were apartments. And in the back was, John, what was behind it?
Ted Capet's.
Ted Capet's Oldsmobile, an auto repair.
Oh, wow. Right there.
And Ted
There was a Western Auto store in there too.
Ted Capet's place, and on E Street, between Bill Mantagna's former building, there's a parking lot. Okay. There was the remnants and workings of the blacksmith shop.
Oh, yeah.
Well, my little girlfriends who had to walk to school were told, you walk on the other side of the street, on E Street going to school. You walk on the side where Barkers live.
The church side.
The church side. Because the language, and Ted Capet's, the language. So there were things that we knew about, and you didn't ask questions, you just did what you were told. But yeah, this was a several-story building, and it was built out over the sidewalk. So that's
okay. I couldn't figure that out.
that was taken down.
What year?
65.
Oh, 65?
And the diner had several locations across the years, one of which was even in the basement of the village hall when they suffered a fire. And then they went to West Main Street, where the open space is now. And then, they went on, Margot took it to over here where Critics was. So the diner's been in various places, and there were other eateries,
The Lions Den.
Yeah, the
Campus
Lions,
campus.
yeah. lots of different businesses, you know, come and go. A Pedisano's used to be where the,
Massage
well,
parlor is.
this, what's the corner there? The spot, I can't think of her name. Scully.
Pam.
Pam Scully's.
Oh, yeah.
That was two businesses. DiNardo's photo and print shop, many of the photographs that are at the museum, was right on the corner at first, as I remember, and then a Pedisano's. And then DiNardo's went out, and a Pedisano's, you know, came to the corner, actually, and then Vinny went down the street.
The Heart Store was there, grocery store.
The Heart
Oh,
Store
yeah,
was where
right,
the
right.
bookstore was, and
Prior to that was the Market Basket.
Oh, and was it? No, I think
No.
the Market Basket was somewhere else.
that was down farther.
Oh, was that?
Yeah.
Oh.
But if you were riding in the grocery cart with your mom
Yeah.
and you went by the meat counter, Mr. Buttons would give you a piece of
Piece of
bologna. Oh yeah, let's go there first, Mom. And the cans all had like a blue stamp, which was the price. And my mother wouldn't appreciate me sharing this with you, but I'm going to. Her spice cabinet was filled with things from forever, because if you didn't use it up, it just stayed there. So when I took the things out of the spice cabinet, there were French's spices in the little tins, okay? Stamped on the bottom, 23 cents. Stamped on the bottom, 35 cents. And I thought, you know, I'm just going to go like this. But I thought, it's very telling. And the cash register, you know, they pressed the buttons on the cash register for the price on the bottom of the can or whatever it was. I have a bread wrapper from Brown's grocery store, which was down where Moffitt's was. That's up on the wall.
Was there a dance hall? I mean, you talked about something here, but I mean, back then, I mean, just.
Well,
There
the
must have
Lion's
been.
Den
There
was
must have-
a teen. Well,
Yeah.
the dance hall was
Village Hall.
upstairs in the Masonic Temple
Right,
or
okay.
upstairs in the Village
That's what I
Hall.
thought I heard, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd read somewhere. And one of Diane's fabulous.
And
books.
Harvey Kloss. Does anybody remember Harvey Kloss?
Love Harvey.
Harvey was just a package. Anyway, he's given me a tour of the temple one day, and he says to me, "You want to see the best view of the falls?" Yeah, sure, Harvey. It's in the men's room on the 3rd floor. And it was, because as you looked out the window, you weren't obscured by the bridge, which you are, you know, like when you went in the State Bank of Honeoye Falls, if you looked out the windows, you really couldn't see because the bridge was in the way, but you could see the gorge in the back. Yeah, so the best view of the falls, unobstructed, was up there. And in the Village Hall, the same way. It was the men's room at the back of the building, where there was a window in the back. And the back staircase for the theater upstairs came down through where Bob Palmer and some of his helpers created a separate restroom for the Village Hall staff. So the back staircase from the theater came down. But the Village Hall is a fascinating building.
It is. Village players used to do rehearsals
Yes.
there.
High school graduations prior to the East Street School were there.
In
The
movies.
town hall,
up there.
before it was the town hall, the.
No, the Village Hall.
Oh, the Village Hall,
Yeah.
yeah.
The lockup was downstairs where Ann Bullock had her
Is that
office.
still there?
No,
No?
that's gone.
I've
But
been down this year.
but
I was
it's-
never in the lockup.
Oh, sure.
And when the bridge was replaced and the whole sidewalk was redone, they discontinued the coal chute. In the front of the building, if you remember, there was an iron, like how they put down an iron sheet in the street when they're doing repairs, steel sheet.
Yeah.
There was a probably 24 inches square at least in the sidewalk, but you could still pull it up, and that was the coal chute.
Oh.
And there was a
Where'd the coal go?
stoves in the
It went
back. It went into the room where they
right there.
stored the coal to fuel the furnace.
Right, it was a big place.
And John Hoffman, if any of you know John and Lorraine Hoffman, John donated a fixture that would have been appropriate for the time of the period of the building, the village hall. And Ed Bachman came in and took out the coverings for the windows that are in the front of the village hall and on the side. When you come in the front door of the village hall, there's windows that wrap the staircase area. He took down the covering on those, and the molding and everything that needed to be repaired, he did, and we painted everything, put down a new rug. But that building has lots of interesting features. So John gave us this fixture to hang on the landing for the up to the theater, to have a light up there other than just a bulb plugged into a socket. And the bell tower, when the fire department celebrated 100 years, Bill Caves came to me and said, "We'd like you to bring the bell out of the tower and put it down in front of the village hall like they do like they have in Lima." And I said, "Why don't we just hook it back up somehow and let it ring?" Well, the mechanism for the bell was still up in the tower. And if you picture a staircase without treads on it and look at the side of it, it's like this, okay? There was 2 boards that hung down, and they were cut like that. So as you looked at it on the side, it stepped down. And when the fire alarm was in the village, that bell would ring very quick in succession because the mechanism for the weights was running down that system. If it didn't ring that quickly, you knew the fire was outside the village. And on the front of the village hall, there was a red globe, about like this, that had etched on it fire. And it sat on an armature fixture that came out from the building and sat up. So like this. And the telephone operators would illuminate that for a fire call, as well as alarm, have the siren run, because they could do that from the telephone office. And if the globe was lit when the Honeoye Falls police officer drove by, because the firehouse was in the village hall, he would know that the fire was in the village, and to get to the operator to find out where it was. But when the fire whistle rang, any fire member could pick up the phone and get the location from the telephone operator.
Any kid in town can.
Yeah, any kid in town, actually, where's the fire? But that was, they would make the siren alarm, and then people would just pick up the phone and where's the fire? Interesting, I always say to people, everybody thinks voicemail, this messaging, call transfer, that's not new. When we had operators, you could pick up the phone and tell the operator where you were going, and if, you needed a call, they would tell you. They would.
Stella O'Neill.
Yeah, and
Call Stella.
Who was it?
Stella
Was the
O'Neill,
operator?
George O'Neill's mom.
and Esther Habecker
Esther Haubecker.
and Mrs.
Habeckers.
McCabe, who lived right on the other side here, the house where Carl used to live. Grace Cook, out of her window while she was getting ready for work, she's sitting there having breakfast, and she sees our barn on fire.
Oh, wow.
And she called in the fire, and she called my dad, and it was like, it was first day of school in 1959, I think. Yeah, that was a bad day. Yes, I'm sorry, I'm talking here.
If the village board were to come and beg for advice, what would you most like to see done to enhance the qualities you prize most, or perhaps undone because it challenges those qualities?
In a very frank manner?
Yes.
I don't know how familiar all of you are with home rule, which allows a board to create and legislate local laws, one of which is zoning, another is, the budget. The laws will subsequently come down to policies, or policies will, lead you to a law. And that goes through a process of public hearing and vetting and, all kinds of things prior to a vote to make sure that it's in the general and best interest of the community. And I have seen on several occasions where that path is wandered, and it's wandered in very broad ways, which I don't think some of it should be that subject to interpretation. I mean, there's a lot of gray area in anything, but when you get into yellow and blue and green, and, I think they ask us to participate, all local government does, and I think that then they have an obligation to follow those laws and their policies. One of the things that I would like to see, and I have said this publicly, I'll say it to you, because if you're not familiar, the Honeoye Falls Fire Department serves a geography beyond the village border. And the people who live outside the village that get that protection pay a fee for that service. And it's a fire contract. It's a contractual negotiation between the village and the town. And during my tenure as mayor, we all thought that there ought to be more of a calculation to it so people could really understand what they were paying for, and that it was an equal payment among all of the people receiving the service. So in the town of West Bloomfield, in the town of Mendon, and for the village, we put a formula together that considered assessment and some other things. Well, and then we decided, as we worked through that several years, wow, when we get to the point where the people in the fire protection district and the town board is the fire commission for the fire protection district outside the village, we ought to do something here, because the people who have the most financial stake should have a say in what's going on and how the money is spent for the benefit of the entire community. And that never happened, And I just think that there needs to be a revisit of that as we talk about the future of the fire service. So I'd like to see
controversy
something
today about.
I don't know that there's so much a controversy. I just think that there's an objective need to take a look at where the money comes from, who has the wherewithal and the final authority to spend it for the benefit of the whole community. Because when you look at it, the village residents really couldn't afford to pay for that fire department functional service and administrative service and equipment and everything without the help of the fire protection district. So, yeah, there needs to be, a buy-in from everybody, but I'd like to see that truly in a more global fashion with the influence of what's happening there.
Well, especially now when there's not the volunteerism that there was, and now we're paying for firemen to be here now.
Yeah. And the ambulance service is wonderful. And when the state health department, really reconfigured ambulance service in New York State, and the health insurance got involved with a copay for, a call to the ambulance, it's really become almost like a business, because there's billable services. The village board sets the rate for the various services, a la carte, so to speak, for the basic life support, the ambulance coming with the EMTs, and then the paramedics, with that advanced life support. So, I think we're at a point where we need to take an objective look financially so that we continue to do the best we can with what we have. There's a huge financial resource that goes into public safety, and local government is all about serving public safety, health, and welfare. That's the mission of local government. So it's as broad as you want to go, but that's the mission of local government in a nutshell.
Muffy, we've researched and written something that's going to be in the paper later this year about a series of incidents that happened between 1975 and 1980 in Honeoye Falls involving local character named High Clements. Did you
I knew, yes.
have any stories or involvement with him? I know
High Clements was a very colorful character. if you knew High, you knew exactly what his position was gonna be on things. He was a very strong advocate for his positions. Some people would say he was an activist. I think he had a certain penchant for pushing buttons, or, you know, whatever you want to call it, because he could trigger certain people very quickly. And I'll never forget, I was out campaigning one night, and I knew he lived here at the Villager, but I didn't know exactly where he lived. And I'm, ringing doorbells and, handing out my literature. Mrs. Clements came to the door, and I knew her, I recognized her. She's a lovely lady. And she said to me, "Wait a minute, I'm gonna go get High. He wants to tell you something." Now, this is after the village had taken him to court over a couple of things. And he came to the door, and he looked out the door this way, and then he looked that way. And he looked at me and he said, "I'm gonna do you a real favor." And I thought, what the heck is he gonna say? He said, "I'm gonna campaign for you by not campaigning for you." Okay. And that's why I say, I think, he knew that he had this propensity, but he brought to light discussion on a lot of topics that probably would never have risen to conversation, or to the level and the extent to which they went. But yes, he was known for those things prior to coming here. I mean, he had lived, and I don't know that he was in the city, but he was very active in city affairs as well. So this was no surprise.
So, are these, I've never been to a town hall meeting. Lots of you guys probably have. I'm out in the sticks now. But I'm just wondering, is there a lot of, how do you want to say, participation by, the community?
I think
more than, just a few people is what I'm trying to say, more than a dozen or two.
I think it depends on the topic and the
if there's
interest
a real
and
topic,
what's
then.
going on.
Right.
I mean, we know from the newspaper, where was it here? Yeah, Save the Barns.
Yeah.
And
That's
I'm
good to
reading
hear.
that and I'm thinking, I
read
don't
that.
remember seeing a public notice for a public hearing for the town board. And then as I looked further, it was a planning board public hearing for that. So yes, people will come out for certain things,
Right.
and otherwise, they're content with what's going on. And
What is it that, it's not every month, or what is it?
well, the village meets, I think, the third Monday of the month.
Third Monday
The
of
town meets
the month.
Second Monday.
second Monday of the month.
Oh, okay. No, I've seen it on Facebook, I guess, or something, but I just,
The village used to
Curious.
meet twice a month,
yeah.
the first and third. And the town used to meet the second and fourth. And then, that changed. I mean, it just, changes happen. It's just the way it is.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I could stand and talk with you all night, but I appreciate you with your questions and your interest in the village, in the town, in the community. And you all have something to offer, and thank you for sharing all that with us. Keeps us going, so.
Okay.